Hello, I'm Martin Richens of Richens Wreaths and Supplies, which I run with my partner Karen Stewart. Many of you will probably have spoken to Karen rather than me. I tend to hide in the background and not get involved with the, the socialising of things. I'm a very social person, but I haven't got time to waste on social media. But Karen asked me to make a short video. This is specifically really for Kerry. But anyone can use the advice I'm going to give here. It's really basic, simple stuff. And if you've done any kind of painting or done any kind of prep work for signs or anything before, you're probably going to think I'm an idiot, but which I am sometimes, but not very often. So you've got to prepare the surface for painting. If you get a wooden or MDF board. So most boards come as in plywood, which is normally a birch plywood. It can be 3, 5, 6 mil, whatever. Or it comes in MDF. Yeah. So this is MDF. I think that's MDF as well. Can't actually remember. But anyway, this is MDF, 3 mil MDF. They come really basic like that. You can't really paint directly onto this surface like this. You've got to prepare it. So you prepare it using a primer, or in painting circles, as we call it a gesso. Yeah. So I use a gesso made by a company called Golden. Really, really good quality stuff. Now they make two types of gesso. One is a standard gesso, and the other is a sandable gesso. I use a sandable gesso because you can put a few layers of this stuff on. It gives you a really nice flat semi-absorbent surface, and you can sand it. The standard gesso you can't sand. It doesn't sand very well at all. It just generates heat and it kind of melts and it's horrid. So there is a reason for using the normal gesso. The normal gesso is quite flexible. So if you paint normal gesso onto a board and you're planning on bending that board around or misshaping that board in some way, or any kind of surface, then you would normally use a standard gesso because that will stretch. The sandable gesso doesn't really work like that. Sandable gesso is quite brittle when it dries, so you don't. If you're going to be painting onto a hard surface like this, it's absolutely fine. It's not going to move too much, so it'll be fine. But for this we're going to be using sandable gesso because then you can sand the surface, get a really nice smooth finish, and that's what you want to get a nice clean finish for your painting. So in terms of materials, Golden sandable gesso. Kerry, when we send your order off to you, I'll put a list of things in your order, and I'll show you what you need and I'll tell you what you need and where to get it from. I personally use a company called Jackson's Art Supplies. They're based in London. I've used them for over 20 years for all my painting needs. So yeah, I'll put all those details in your order anyway. We're working on this welcome board just now. This is Karen's one. I've actually finished yours already, Karen. Yours is done. It's just drying in the room next door. So I've prepped it all for you. But this is Karen's board. She wanted me to prep one for her. And I've got one more coat to put on the front side of the welcome board. I would recommend 2 to 3 coats on the surface you're actually going to be painting on. I've painted it on the back as well. You don't necessarily have to do that, but if you're going to be using these boards in a damp environment or they're going to be outside, I would recommend, once they're all painted and prepped, seal them. And the way you seal them is you use a varnish, and there's also different types of varnishes you can get. Gloss varnishes, matte varnishes, satin varnishes. There are many, many different kinds of varnishes. You just need to do a little bit of research on that as well. I use a couple of different varnishes, but the way I use varnishes is different from what I'm doing here, because obviously I'm a painter. I'm a contemporary fine art painter, so I use varnish for slightly different reasons than something like this. A varnish for something like this is not just designed to protect it, it's designed to stop moisture getting into it and stuff like that as well. So you want to make sure you use a varnish that repels water, so you can yeah, you can basically prepare any surface and seal it, and you can use it outside as well, and it won't warp or fall apart. This is I've already put a coat on the front side of this. It's got one coat on it at the moment. Two coats may be enough. If it's still, sometimes if I feel it needs a third coat, I'll put a third coat on. But front side, 2 to 3 coats. Rear side, just a single coat on the rear side will be fine, because you're not going to be painting on that side. It's just, if you do varnish it, the varnish applies just a little bit easier to a prep surface. So that painting the rear is just to allow us to seal that a little bit easier. So front side, I'm going to do that now. You can use a brush, you can use a paintbrush, so you can use something like this, just like a big paintbrush. I have primed boards with paintbrushes. It's not a problem, it's no problem at all. But if you want to prep surfaces really quickly and really easily, use a roller, a little mini roller. Yeah? You get them from B&Q, they're really cheap. You get a little tray that comes with it as well. It's great, it's fine. And it's super efficient, and it gets things done really quickly. You just tip a little bit of the gesso into the tray, and you get your roller, and you get some on your roller, which I'm going to do now. Yeah? So I'm just going to do this surface just now. So this is hopefully the second and final coat I'll be putting on the front side of this. This design, this welcome design on this side is fairly intricate. It's gone through a laser cutter, and these laser cutters can cut out incredibly intricate and sophisticated designs really easily. I mean, the wonders of modern technology. You know, here I am. I'm a traditional artist, and got these computers and all sorts, and do all this sort of stuff. I feel so redundant, you know. I'm getting old and redundant, but no, there's still a place for true creativity, true human creativity, I think. But yeah, this is quite a kind of a sort of really complex design. There's lots of complex letter forms here. Now, if you're priming the surface, that's not a problem, because you just put your roller on it, it goes straight over it. It's not a problem. But I would recommend, if you're going to seal these boards as well, I would recommend painting the edges as well, the outside and inside edges. Now with a lettering design like that, that's a bit of a pain in the bum, because you can't, so intricate, you can't really use a roller for that. So you're going to need like a small paintbrush really to do those edges. And I was doing this yesterday, I had a little paintbrush, and I was doing these little edges inside these letters. So it is a bit of a pain, but if you want it to be prepped properly, you need to do it. And preparation is really important in any kind of creative endeavour. If you prepare well, it just makes the final thing look so much better and so much more professional. And now, obviously, I've been painting for a long time. I've been in the creative industries for over 30 years. I'm giving away my age now, but yeah, I've been in the creative industries for more than 30 years, and I believe it or not, I have managed to survive. It's been difficult, I know, but you make your choices and you take your chances, and that's that. But it was just what I am. I'm just an artist, really. So I'm always happy. Always like painting and stuff. Right, so it doesn't take long. So this is the second coat on the front side, hopefully the last one. Hopefully I won't need to put another one on. You do get a lot of scorch marks on these boards, because when they're laser cut, the laser generates a lot of heat, obviously. And you do get that kind of scorch marks and burn marks around the edges, and it can take a little bit of time. It can take a few layers of gesso to actually cover those scorch marks up. It's not a big problem if you're using, shall we say, opaque paints. So if you're using paints that are very opaque, in other words you can't see through them, it's not a big problem, because the paint will also cover up that, those marks as well. If you're using a transparent or translucent paint, then you need to cover up those scorch marks. You need a really nice, flat, clean, bright surface to work on. So that's that. So what I do is I now wait for that, put that to one side, wait for it to dry. The gesso takes probably, if it's in a warm room, it can be pretty much touch dry within half an hour, so it doesn't take long to dry. I wouldn't recommend working on it for a couple of hours. I'd let it dry properly for 2 to 4 hours. But that's now done, so I can put that to one side. And once it's dry, I'll come back and I'll get my little paintbrush and I'll do all the edges. If it's long straight edges like that on the side, there, you can use a roller for that. But all these little intricate edges in the lettering and all that, you're going to have to use a brush for that, unfortunately. It's going to take a little bit of time. And I'm only getting paid I'm not even getting paid by the hour for this. I do everything for free for Karen, it's terrible. But I get nothing in return. But yeah, so that's done. So in terms of things that you need this gesso, Carrie. You need this golden sandable gesso. As I said, I'll put a list in of what you need. You need your little roller. And I would recommend you get a little brush, any old rubbishy little brush, something like that, I don't know, just any old little brush, just so you can do these little spaces in between. Now something like this, which I'm going to prep as well actually, these heads. I know one of them you want just plain like that because you want to do it yourself, which is great. Hopefully I can help with that with these videos, or this video anyway. Use it. Get hold of these materials, and you'll be able to do it yourself, no trouble at all. Little brush, gesso, roller, and the tray, and you're set. It's really, really simple stuff in terms of preparation. Now, when it comes to painting, although I'm not doing any painting right now, you need to decide what kind of paints you're going to use. I would recommend using acrylic. Now, I use oil paint in my proper painting. I do use acrylic paints as well, but I prefer using oil paint in my painting. But that's specific to the painting that I do. This stuff is, for me, more commercial. So you need it to be what you might say utilitarian. It has to be practical. It has to be durable. You don't want to wait 2 weeks for it to dry. Acrylic paint dries almost immediately. Another thing I use alongside paint is I don't just brush these paints on. I tend to use airbrushes. So that's just my personal preference. You get a nice smooth finish with the airbrush. You can run your acrylic paints through the airbrush. That's a different video. I'm not going to go on too much about that. But whatever paint you're going to use, I recommend acrylic, and a decent quality acrylic if you could afford it. It's always a good investment to get good quality supplies. I personally use a combination of golden acrylics and Liquitex acrylic. If you're going to be running them through an airbrush, you need to get the soft body or the ink based